Welcome back to another Isolation Cast Voices from Quarantine. It's been a crazy couple of weeks for everyone. There's no end in sight. The president this week decided that April 30th is a good time, but we're not really sure. So we're hoping everybody stays indoors, and we're hoping we can keep everyone company with some laughs, some cringes, and just some good conversation. So I had one of our really awesome students from the University of Florida reach out, and so I wanted to bring him on the show today to kind of give the perspective of what's happening to American students, but also talk about being a young artist and kind of what he's seeing in his future. So welcome to the show, Daniel Nunez. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on here. I'm really happy to be here. Happy to be on your show.
I'm so happy you reached out to me. So why don't you tell the audience just a little about like who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, I am a part-time student and full-time party animal. Student at UF, University of Florida. I started telling jokes, and before I could actually post anything, the coronavirus happened, and then I couldn't put out any more work.
Great. Well, yeah, this has been a weird time that's affected kind of everyone. And so, how has this affected like being a student? Because I know like you're just getting used to like not having to live with mom and dad and like being to live on, you're living with people and you're forming this community and forming friendships that aren't your like high school friendships. How did this thing affect kind of your flow of your first year at university?
Well, I didn't really start to get used to being on my own or being the student life, right until like the very end. It was getting used to it. You're good, and then bam, everything just shut down. So I'm back with mom. I'm back with my little brother, and it feels like the plot of a weird movie. It's like 17 again, and The Purge. Like, everything's illegal, but also I have no responsibilities anymore. It's kind of what it feels like. God. Yeah.
You know what? It's one of those things that, like, we've had this weird dystopian obsession in media for, like, the last 10 years. And now we're, like, into we're in the prologue of a dystopian novel. And it's really strange because we're still insisting that, like, we need to keep life as normal. But, like, I went and had to stand in line for 45 minutes to wait to get into Target the other day because I needed Lysol and, like, bread. And so, it's one of those weird things that, like, while they can still encourage for everything to like be normal, there's just not a normal right now, and that's not a bad thing, but like I think we're all still getting used to it. And so when you and I first met, you were working crew for my thesis production of We Are Proud to Present.
I love that show.
It's a much longer title. I'm not going to bore everyone with it. I love that show too. One of the things that impressed me, and that's why I didn't know that you were a freshman, was you felt comfortable in the room with people you didn't know, and like you were just kind of snapping off jokes while we were all waiting to go. You and one of the other guys, Joe, were just really comfortable when we had you all like ad-libbing coming in because we put the stage crew to work, or like as actors in the scene and the pre-show. And so I was just really impressed with kind of how comfortable you were in the room and just kind of snapping off jokes. So I know you said before we were talking, and you said your only class that's still going is your stand-up comedy class, which I find in itself kind of a joke that like your only online class right now is a stand-up comedy class.
Yeah.
But can you talk about like your background with like how comedy started for you and how this idea of like telling jokes to a room or working on stand-up started?
Yeah, for sure. The first time that I was on stage, it was at a place called Jesse's Lounge over in Winter Haven. Shout out to Jesse's Lounge. The first time I told stand-up, it just didn't really hit well with the audience. I didn't really know my audience very well. And that kind of failure, even though I got like sympathetic laughs, that was still something that kept me going. The people who liked the jokes, they were covered in tattoos, piercings, like the bar, people behind the bar, they're like, whoa, that was like sick. Because it was just dark humor. It was just really dark, twisted humor. And Winter Haven is a very kind of salt life area, if that makes sense. So I took that and I just kind of learned, and I wanted to be myself, be authentic on stage and off stage. But yeah, it was just such a great way and such a great outlet for me. I actually wrote about that experience in my college application essay.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how I got in. I talked about everything down to the cigarette smoke in the air and the coolness and the stillness of the air. I remember that first time on stage like it was yesterday.
Well, I think there's always that saying of however you want to use it, that you always remember your first time. And I think a lot of artists and performers always connect to that moment where they went, oh, this is when I knew what I wanted to do, or this is when I found, for me, more importantly, this is the moment I found the passion and the fire. So like you had that moment that could have been utter defeat for someone or a feel of utter failure, but you kind of took that and that's what you're using as like your fire to keep going forward, which I just think is commendable and great, and got you into a top 7 university. Now they keep calling us a top 7 university. I've been here 3 years. I want to know what exactly is top 7, unless it's how the big boys throw the footballs. Maybe that's how we're top 7. I don't know. No shame to University of Florida. Go Gators. Gator Nation. But so you're a BFA acting student at the University of Florida. Talk to me a little bit about how you approach, combining comedy and theater, because you're learning the techniques, you're learning the basics and things, but how is that, like, studying something in a very formalized training of being an artist also apply to like how you look at furthering yourself as a comedian?
I would definitely say that I've been kind of learning in a kind of weirder way. I've been mostly just doing my own thing. I think that's just what I just do, is I just do my own thing. At first I didn't know if a university would be right for me, but now I'm very thankful that I have kind of like a place to make mistakes, to keep making mistakes and just become a person before I become an artist. I think just getting in touch with my baseline, like this is who I am, and this is how I should react to these like certain situations. Like that's where the real learning can begin, if that makes any sense. Like being around people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you brought up a really good point of that, especially because actors and, just being at a university that requires the kind of stringent academic standards that UF does, there's so much pressure put on everyone that they don't want to fail. But you brought it up where, like, especially in the acting classroom and learning techniques and things, the classroom is the best place to fail. It's the safest place to fail. And I love the idea of academic theater, and people put a little bit too much pressure on themselves and put a little too much clout in behind, oh, that I'm an actor, I'm a BFA, I'm studying to be a fine artist. But really, you are in a place for 4 years where it is safe and encouraged to fuck up. You are encouraged to fail, because even if it's a main stage or even if it's something that you put a lot of like hope and effort into, you can fall flat on your face, and this is the place that it's safe to, so that you know how to like rally yourself and like you learn what works, you learn what doesn't, and you learn what works for you as an artist in a place where it's safe to do that. And that's honestly why a lot of people, if you can get past the kind of the nonsense of the academic expectations of universities, an academic theater situation is good to be in, because also you're getting the fundamentals. And I don't care what anybody says, that even if you don't use them on a daily basis, the fundamentals of performance and acting are so applicable in so many career paths that once you have those fundamentals and you know the rules, you can break all of the rules. You can throw all the rules out, but it's really important to know those rules first. And so I think you have
to have that strong foundation.
And I think it's really important that you know that now, because a lot of people, like even in my undergrad, I was an older student, I didn't really think about it until like my junior or senior year, when I was like, oh, I've been able to fail these many times and like still give myself an alleviation of pressure, because while it's important to learn about deadlines and know how to stick to them and know how to like put a production together and do it professionally, there aren't millions of dollars based on if your failed decision in period styles, doesn't go according to plan. And I just think it's really good that you know that now. So, but like, it's weird that you've gone home, that you had to like go home and suddenly have a lot of free time. So have you been like doing anything during this time? And
Oh yeah, I've been like, sorry, I've been super busy. What I realized is when I'm going to be a professional actor, what am I going to do? Like half the time, as any professional actor, you're going to be out of a job. And that's what I am right now. I am really, we all are. We're all out of a job. So I'm not wasting any second, because time is valuable, and I'm putting the work in. I'm writing things. I'm doing online theater with my fellow BFA actors, which has been really fun. We just did Shakespeare in Love the other day, and that was so fun to do with them. But I want to keep my acting tools sharp. I want to make sure I'm still on my game. That way, especially just even as a stand-up comedian or an aspiring one, I have material to record and put out, and maybe even do some tours after a few open nights or open mics. And I want to perform at clubs and perform for people, things like that.
Well, and that's great. Honestly, because like so many comedians now are actually getting their break because someone's finding their YouTube video, or, there are all those things. So honestly, this isn't the worst thing that could happen for everybody. Also, like, every actor is going to have the most amazing self-tape technique ever after this. Everyone's going to know like how to work in front of a camera, and they're going to have really great reps because they've been taking this time to read so much. So it's actually not the worst thing. And I'm glad you're taking that opportunity.
Yeah, this is also a crazy time. It's because we're not going to get this time when we ever again. Yeah.
Well, and also this is that I also want people to not feel that there's a pressure to have to create and have to do things. Like, this is the one time in your life where you're going to be able to go, you know what? I woke up today. I don't feel like I can muster enough to put something together. So it's okay that I can't, or I don't have to. And I think that's a really important thing right now for a lot of artists, especially because there's a huge move of like a lot of professionals are constantly putting things together. They're podcasting, they're live casting, they're doing things that like normally no one would have time for. But I also think it's important that people don't feel the stress to create. I want them to feel moved to create, and don't feel like you have to if you're not feeling up to it.
Yeah, if you force it, you're just hurting yourself, because you need to consistently do these things and practice. That's one thing. Even if it's just a sentence, don't force yourself to make a whole set. Don't force yourself to write an entire play. Don't force yourself to lose 30 pounds. It's you need to be comfortable and happy doing what you want to do. And I feel like that's also why people just can't be consistent in their craft. Yeah. If you are not 100% passionate, then that just shows. And if you need to do things that make you truly happy, that truly lets you express yourself. And that's also another thing that's just hard for people to find out. But we have all this time now to just explore, to make mistakes in our own homes, in the comfort of our couches.
Yeah. This is also that time to like pack in things that like a lot of my friends who have all recently graduated from university or whatnot, we have a digital play club, because they're like, there are all these plays that I know I should have read, but like I didn't have time to read them. So now we're reading like 2 a week and then meeting twice, at like, we're Skyping together and then discussing these plays in a way that we would have been able to in a classroom or been able to hanging out, getting drunk in someone's living room. But like when you're a working artist, or when you're working that day job because, you're a playwright or a dramaturg or a director, and it's much harder to find mind work, that, these are those moments to like catch up on that canon that you've been missing out on, or like, I think it's great that you all as the BFAs are like still getting together and reading stuff together, because at the end of the day, you're going to be able to reference that. You're going to have you're going to find that one monologue that works, but it's also just still going to keep the chops of discussing theater and discussing art. And like, I'm having more conversations with people that I haven't chatted with in years, because everybody's so engaged in like everything they're taking in right now, which I think is wonderful. But, transitioning from the idea of like creating, is there anything that you're just finding absolute joy in right now, or solace, or something that's just like helping you get through and like feel a little less shitty about everything?
Wow. There's so many different little things that I can talk about. I love novelty. I love discovering something new. I love newness. So just from Tiger King, which is all over the news besides like coronavirus.
All over the news.
All over. Tiger King is insane. And if you like Tiger King, by the way, there's another documentary. I don't know if you have HBO. It's called The McMillions. It's another type of documentary that's just it cannot be real. You watch it and you go, how is that real? It is insane.
You're like the third person this week that's recommended that to me, so I'm gonna need to like watch that this weekend. I think I've started putting together like my playlist for the weekends and making sure that I'm not like streaming too much during the week, so that I can still like keep my like, I have to work on my things so I can graduate. I need to make sure I'm grading and doing my lesson plans and stuff. But so I've just been packing stuff into the weekend, so that is on the top of my list for this coming weekend.
It's really smart having a routine. Yeah, no. Once you start, you won't be able to stop until it's solved.
Oh my God, I can't wait. Well, and that's the thing is like, yeah, literally, I was sharing so many Tiger King memes today, and it's so wild that even Lisa Frank has done an official piece of Lisa Frank art of Joe Exotic with a tiger. Like, it's so wild to me, but also what's more wild, after watching it, none of them are good people. Have you finished the series?
None of them. I'm on like episode 5, I think, but
Okay. So
I just, from the very start, they're all they're all
awful,
people.
except the staffs of Joe's sanctuary. They're good people. They're just a little lost. A little, they're just downtrodden, disenfranchised. But it's one of those things that people are like, we need to free Joe. And I was like, why? Y'all, he is not a good man. He is a predator. Like the two men, the poor straight men that he like tricked into marrying with tigers and meth. Like,
yeah, that's really tough to see unfold.
Yeah. Well, and then poor Travis and everything. But it's one of those things that I think it's going to be interesting, the conversations as that, like, the popularity of it wanes, and we can actually take a step back and go, okay, let's unpack what we're watching here and why it took so long for all these things to happen, and like why these things have happened. But I definitely want a continuing series because it's still ongoing, and like there's so much happening. But also, like, I want a series about Carol's first husband, because like he also was not a great dude and like had this weird life and was obsessed, and like I kind of want a documentary about like all the reasons of like why he could have disappeared and all like the people he works with. And so, like, it's just it's weird when the Miami drug lord is the most normal person that you actually don't find terrible throughout the whole series.
Yeah.
That we meet early on. But yeah, so, I think the entire world, do you think if we all weren't home right now with this much time, do you think people would have been as likely to invest in 7 hours of their time into the story of Joe Exotic? Or do you think this would be slower to kind of get speed if we all weren't in our homes right now?
Well, I don't think that as many people would have been watching. I do think that it would have picked up steam, because I feel like it kind of did have a lot of traction beforehand. He was on Tonight with John Oliver, so he was already getting like media attention. So I think there was a good chance. Like this was a really solid show. You had the perfect storm and just weird characters and in a weird time. So it was just such a great distraction.
It's one of those, I don't think Netflix could have dropped it at a better time. Like, it's one of those weird, like, I saw the meme earlier when they were like, Disney Plus announces Frozen 2 and Netflix says, hold my beer. It's one of those that I think, while the story is crazy, I think it's such an interesting aspect of storytelling because whether I realized it or not, the documentarians were carefully crafting my emotions and my response in every episode. And then without me realizing in the next episode, they would go, okay, we realize you're here. We're going to turn the dial so you start distrusting too. We're going to start showing Joe being a little more erratic and showing a little more of these things happening. And it was one of those that I didn't realize till the end that I was like, oh, they were really careful in the decisions they made in every episode and why it was like, it seemed like I thought it was going to be like a 3 or 4 episode series. And then like episode 5 started and then episode 6. And then it was like, oh, there's a 7th episode. And I went, oh my God, I can't believe this is going to keep going. Like this, it's actually a really interesting look at storytelling and how we can tell an actual story like a documentary in a way that we would tell a piece of fiction and how we would carefully craft how we want to lead someone on a story. And I think that's ultimately something really interesting to take away from it is just how they're able to use the storytelling.
Yeah. I mean, you can't write anything better than the truth very often.
Yeah. I mean, that's so true because literally if we read a piece of fiction based on this, I don't think anyone would believe it. And I think people barely believe it because there's so much footage of it happening live. But one of my other guests the other day was like, how did they never turn this into like the police? How did they never turn this into the FBI until something bigger happened? Like where is our spot as artists when we go, okay, I understand that we need to make this story, but this is a point where we need to stop and do something about it. Like, that's the thing that gets me is like, granted, it all, as you'll keep watching, it does unfold in a specific way. And maybe they knew that, and that's why they didn't, or we don't know that they said anything earlier on.
But I definitely have to keep watching. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you definitely have to keep watching. But what else? What else is going on in kind of your realm of your world that's kind of keeping you grounded right now?
Ooh, I'm spending a lot of time with my family, which it's actually pretty fun. It's just weird because it's a new. I haven't had the chance to actually go up and visit my mom since August. I haven't seen her since August, since before my freshman year started, and a lot has changed. I grew a beard to show the passage of time, and and now we're just together, and she's cooking for me again. Home cooked meals I've missed so much. Oh my goodness.
It's because while there are lots of food options on our campus, they're not exactly wonderful. And Gainesville is expensive. I mean, college towns, just the standard of living is so high now because of we have a lot of students who come from money, and we have the professors that are making so much money that are there that like the cost of living is so high that like it's hard to be a student in a place like this and miss those creature comforts that we don't realize that are actually a really like solidifying force of like what makes us feel comfortable or put together, even as simple as a home cooked meal.
Yeah, I can't tell you how long it's been since I've washed the dishes or fried an egg. I forgot how to boil pasta or cook pasta. I was so embarrassed. I had to ask my mom. She was just disappointed.
Hey, I mean, you know what though? This is what I always say, especially for like male identifying people, whether you're like straight, gay, however you identify. A lot of times there's not been much focus on like guys learning how to like do their own laundry and clean and cook.
Yes.
Because of being a high school student and being like, American education is so strenuous for so many students in order to just pass some tests that they're not getting some of these things, or like home ec classes have been cut from high schools. And so like, honestly, this is a really great opportunity for you to like cement those things up, because then you can be like, cool, I'm living, because there are not that many beds on the UF campus, so a lot of our students have to live off campus. It's a very fact of life for a lot of students. And so that's the difference between living in a dorm and living on your own. Even if you have a ton of roommates, there are those things that you need to confidently be able to know how to do, and you're getting that opportunity, and there is nothing better than learning from your mom. Like, I always thought she was being cruel. My mom, when I was growing up, and she'd be like, you need to do laundry. And I was like, but I don't want to. And she's like, I don't care. And like, but it's then I went to school, right out of high school. And then I was like, I know how to do my laundry and not ruin my clothes. This is great. Though, cut to me for an entire semester, we didn't use fabric softener. We weren't that kind of bougie people. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to get the detergent with the bear on it, not realizing I was washing my clothes with fabric softener for an entire semester and not with a detergent. That was an embarrassing moment. But yeah, so family, I think that's what a lot of people are also finding right now, is that there is a reconnection to family, or the chosen families, because a lot of people don't have the fortune or have the ability to be with family, or be part of a family, so they have a chosen family, and they've gotten to spend time with those people that they've gotten quarantined with. And so I think that's nice that you're getting to spend time with your mom and your brother, and just do domestic-y things and spend time doing that.
Yeah. It's.
Yeah.
You
Go ahead.
No, you.
Yeah,
never mind.
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna go on to say, like, it was just, the first time I learned how to do laundry was actually freshman year. I don't know that.
Great. Yeah. Well, so everyone's talking about how they can't wait to go back to normal. And while I love that idea, normal wasn't really working for it. Like, I don't know anybody that the normal day-to-day was super wonderful for, like, just as like lower middle class Americans, especially for anybody that's like not straight and white, and male, I guess. And so like, I don't think we should go back to a normal. I think we're going to have a new normal out of this. So as a young person who's going back into a university setting, how do you think this is going to affect, I guess, start with how this is going to affect like how we educate and how we do classes and go to school, but also maybe how do you think this is going to change artists, the theater community, and how we tell stories after this?
That is an interesting question. I hope that we just prioritize time. A lot of things that could be an email, like meetings that can be an email, can stay emails. Conferences, we don't need to meet up in person for conferences. We can easily do a video chat, and everything is communicated perfectly. When it comes to being an artist, I know for stand-up, just having an audience is important. So you can't just do shows online, but if it's reading a script, it's hard for people to pick a time and a place to meet. So to say, hey, we're all going to Zoom or do Google Hangouts or FaceTime, and we're going to read this script. We're going to just cast the rules as we go. Mm-hmm. That can be a really good way to not only get yourself to read these scripts, to experience new artists, find screenplays or screenwriters that work for your sense, that work for your taste. You get to work with friends too. And that's the whole fun in this industry. It's finding a group of people that you can just make fun of each other and just hang out and just go crazy. Yeah.
Well, and it's good because sometimes, like, whether it's a good thing or not, at the end of the day, type in our industry is a real thing. And so, like, you might not ever actually get to do a show with your best friends who are artists. Like in school, that's not as much of a case because we bend type and you'll have a 19-year-old that plays a 40-year-old, or, at the university level, like at UF, we have a graduate and undergraduate. So a lot of our graduates are lots of different age ranges. So, you do have sometimes the age appropriate people in shows, but like, you might not ever get to do shows with all of your friends, and getting to do readings of plays that you all really like, and getting to do a role that maybe you're not the right type for or something, but because it's just together, it doesn't matter. And so I think this is also a really good opportunity for like people to see what kind of artists their friends are, because I have so many friends that like I've taken classes with and I was like, oh, they don't do great work in the classroom. And because of that, I've never seen them in a show, but like we'll do a small project together and then I'll be like, oh my God, you're a really dynamic artist. You do this thing really well, but nobody lets you do this thing. So like, let's figure out how we can get you that work to like do that thing that you're actually really good at, because maybe you're not great at scene work, or like I love improv, but like I'm not always the best on my toes right away, or cold reads for me aren't great. I have to have someone that I need a little time with the work. And so, but there are things that I still love doing, but I think this is an opportunity where we can see what people are really capable of and just see the kind of chops that people have, especially I think for our female identifying friends, because there are always so few roles for women at the end of the day in theater. And so we're getting to see a lot of really cool women do a lot of really cool work together right now. And I think this is, it's a really interesting thing that, again, I hope we don't see go away when and if we can transition back to normal.
Yeah, I think it's important to market yourself and show off, show yourself off, to write things for you instead of waiting to be casted or waiting for that opportunity. You have to make your own opportunities sometimes. And
and I'm hoping to also see people writing a little bit more, because it doesn't even have to be something serious where you sit down to write this great monolith, but like I'm somebody, I started journaling 2 years ago to help with my mental illness and things, and like sometimes I'll find a really good bit in there that I've actually written that I was like, oh, this might actually be good for something, or like I don't consider myself a writer, I don't think I'm particularly good at it, but it's one of those things that if I hadn't been writing during these times, or journaling even, I'm not sure I could process in the same way. And so whether I don't want to encourage anybody to think they're going to sit down and write the next Great Gatsby or, the next Angels in America, but like, if you're tired of not finding the right work for you or your friends, or you are tired that there aren't, great trans roles or things that like, if you sit down a couple minutes a day, an hour a day, and you just start writing your thoughts down, you start writing things down, you never know what's going to happen. Like, I think this is also a good time for people to do things that maybe they weren't going to do before, or didn't have time to do before, flex in a way on themselves that they hadn't before. But like, you never know what you're going to find. Because again, no one should feel the pressure to create, but I'm looking at everybody out there through my microphone, and I know you're like me. I know you buy far too many notebooks and paper and pen supplies that you never use. You have a bunch of journals sitting around because you're like, oh, that cover is real cute. Oh, look at this super spiffy pen that I'm going to buy at Papyrus because, I love myself and I want to waste $12 on a fountain point pen. Sit down, write something, just use those resources you have, because like if you've moved as much as I have, you don't want to move that shit again. So like, you're doing it, and I a lot of my friends are doing it, and I want to encourage everyone out there to like, don't put pressure on yourself, but like maybe go sit outside in like a little bit of sun patch away from people, because everybody needs to get outside and write for a half an hour. Like if you don't feel the words coming, don't sit and write, but like, I'm sure people have always felt that time to like sit down and just get something done on paper. And this is a really good time to do it.
Yeah, and writing in general, even if it's just journaling, it is extremely cathartic. I was surprised at how much better that I felt when I started just writing things that happened in my day, even things that I was grateful for, things that people said something and I kind of took it the wrong way. Man, like looking at it down, it is trivial. It's like a little tiny thing. And I feel like that is a way to get in touch with yourself again. I feel that's why there's so much like mental kind of illnesses and diseases like depression specifically. And a lot of people are depressed, but a lot of people also don't take the time to just unfurl their feelings, like just to recognize, why am I feeling so sad right now? What are the things that have been affecting me? What am I not dealing with? And if you really take the time to know yourself, not only will your writing skills improve, but your sense of self will improve. You will feel a little bit better. And just small amounts, just a little bit every day.
Yeah, well, and that's what I found is like I was, diagnosed by, with X, Y, and Z. We're not going to go into that now. About 10 years ago, and a lot of it was always, being an artist, I didn't always have health insurance, and I couldn't always go see a therapist. I couldn't get psychiatric help. And, there were things that I always thought were like kind of voodoo, like hoodoo-ish, like things that like it all was a little woo-woo for me. And so, I would still internalize those moments, and some days I would be crippled by like waking up, and I'd hurt my own feelings within 10 minutes of being woken, being awake. And then I would realize later that it was like, oh, that wasn't actually your depression. That was just, you were sad. And then you let yourself be sad. And then you let yourself hurt your own feelings for being sad. And then you let that ruin your day. And so I found that like, now that I journal and I meditate, like shout out to Insight Timer. It's a free site, a free app. It is so good to just find ways that meditate for you, even if it's like finding what to focus on in the room. And it doesn't have to be kind of as woo-woo as we all think it is. But like the moments I started doing those things, I started being able to differentiate like, oh, I am having a manic episode. This is what's going to, these are the feelings before I either have a super high or a super low, or if I know I need to reach out and get help because of something that's going to happen, or if I'm just sad one day, and we all just get sad. And I think there's so many people now that talk about and go, oh my God, I'm sad today. I just need my Starbucks and I just need to like have a me day. I need to get my nails done. And like, yeah, that's a thing. Self-care is so important, but we also need to differentiate the difference between like the legitimate feelings of depression and anxiety and panic, which are very real. And they are very, we need to unpack and deal with them in the way we deal with them. And, I hope everyone out there is finding ways to get help for the legitimate issues in their life, but then also finding those moments when like we're just human and our bodies are just feeling away. We are just having a moment of chemical imbalance, and we need to kind of rally ourselves to keep moving. And I think that's you bring up a really good point, and how we're at the point where we have no reason to not differentiate those things and find those moments of difference in ourselves. And I think I'm hoping that this is a really good time for people, because this can also be a really terrible time if you don't live with people, or you're not necessarily close with the people you live with and you're very close off. This can actually be a really hard time for people. And so I think reading through those books that you always wanted to read, and like writing down your thoughts a couple times a day. I encourage everyone to try new recipes. This is a good time to learn to cook. Like, I have friends out there who I'm not going to look at, who are in their 30s, who still eat like Tostino's pizza rolls and Hot Pockets and like Diet Coke because they don't cook. Babies, I love you. This is a really good time to learn how to like cook and like have access to those things. Or my young listeners, like, this is a really good opportunity. Like, you're not in the dorm right now. You're not in your shitty college apartment. Like, this is a great time to like sit down with, like, especially if you have your extended family around, or, you know, some of my favorite recipes I learned from my mom like 12 years ago. And so this is a good opportunity to learn those things if you have that opportunity. Or just Tasty has been sharing so many good videos, and Food Network. There are so many opportunities. Like, these are just a really good time to like focus on, like, I got really sick the other day because I hadn't eaten fast food in 3 weeks, and then suddenly I had 2 fast food meals and I got sick. And so, not saying that the fast food was bad, but it was just my body had gotten used to me eating a little cleaner, just cooking for myself, and even with a larger portion, it was just better. And so these are those moments to do some good corrections of things and just develop some good habits in place, because I have a list of bad habits. So
Oh, I was gonna say, I think I did. I lucked out because, my dad's from Pakistan, and all the meals they have a lot of flavor, and also they're pretty easy to just throw something in. You don't need a lot of ingredients for a lot of these dishes. And that's another great thing. It's a good time to maybe learn how to cook an Ethiopian dish. Maybe I can bake some injera. Maybe I can just explore with what I have and make something new. Because cooking is an art form too.
Yeah, I saw a recipe earlier, and I love naan bread. Like, it's one of my favorite. Like, I could literally just eat a couple pieces of naan and be super happy. Well, I didn't realize how actually easy it is to make, and I saw a great recipe for garlic naan bread, and I was like, oh shit, I have all but one of these things in my fridge. When I need to go out in a couple days, I'm going to go grab that one thing I need. I think it was yogurt. I don't have yogurt. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to make naan, and it's going to be great, and it's going to keep for a while. And those are just those things of like, oh, or like I've been delving into Thai food. And so like when Walmart was shutting down, all of the like shitty prepared foods were all out. But I was like, oh, look, there's a whole end cap of rice noodles that are 75 cents for like 8 servings of rice noodles. Oh my God, here's the tofu that no one's buying. Oh my God, look, there were just crushed peanuts. I was like, oh great, I can make 14 servings of pad thai for less than $15. And I was like, oh, these are really great things. And like pad thai is a comfort food for me. And so yeah, that was that opportunity where I went, oh, I'm going to make some things that I never make because I'm rushing to get a meal put together. And I'm going to make those times. And this is a great time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for reaching out. And I'm so happy that I've had you on the show. If anyone wants to find you online, where can they find you?
Ooh, I'm hoping to update this a little more as soon as everything's over and I can actually post some more stand-up. But I'm on Instagram. My handle is DanPionUnez. That's Dan Pio Nunez. That's also my Twitter and my TikTok, which I don't really use. But now I think that's another thing that I can do. I can post TikToks now just for fun. Yeah. I just downloaded TikTok like 2 weeks ago, and it has been I've made like a handful of really shitty videos. It's fine. It's whatever. I'm an old person on TikTok. It's whatever. But I've actually really, especially since the quarantine started 2 weeks ago, I've really been enjoying the content that everybody's putting out. And I think the other day they tweaked the algorithms, and so it's now based on like your interests and like what you're liking and things versus like who's the most popular and who's like hashtagging for you page. Because in the last 2 days, I've been getting a lot of people who have less than 1,000 followers, like less than 1,000 likes on a video, but their content is so good. And I was like, oh, I'm enjoying this even more than I was, getting the e-boys doing their chain challenge, like whatever the popular thing is. And I actually think it's going to be another really interesting outlet as long as it doesn't go the way of Vine and die. But fingers crossed. What kind of content do you post on the TikTok? I have posted 2 videos, one of which is still on there. The other one was removed.
Why?
I was the title. It was the title, I think, because yeah, it was yeah. But oh well, I think I can still repost it. I can still post it. I just need to change the title, and it's so difficult to try and get a cameraman over at my house because my brother just despises TikTok. And every time I ask him, I have a video idea or a TikTok idea, it's like he ate a whole lemon and he just rides me on that. He just pokes fun at me. But I mostly just do comedy stuff, like weird little absurdist comedy, like make fun of The Sims or like little skits or sketches.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, and I think that's what I want to go to TikTok and see. I want to see the funny little things. I love seeing people do way more elaborate things than they need to for like 60 seconds of humor. But like, I have not laughed out loud like I have since like watching TikTok, though. I think what you should do is like start making a trend of like asking your brother, like film yourself asking your brother to do a TikTok for you, like film a TikTok for you and just like blast him on TikTok. I think that'd be funny.
That's a really funny idea. I might just do that. He hates being on camera and I might just do that. Make fun of him too. Get him back.
Oh, that'd be funny. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. And before I let you go, if you had like one like sentence of wisdom or like a little bit of wisdom or thought for the audience of like how they could keep going during this time, what would that be? I know it's a hard question.
Oh, well, you don't need to do anything besides just stay at home and stay safe. Because what's going to happen over the next few days is exactly what the professionals have been saying. Cases are going to go up.
Yep.
Hospitals are going to get overwhelmed, and people are going to start to panic. They're going to freak out, but you just need to stay calm. This is a historical moment, and we're all in our homes, and we're all together. And there is something beautiful about that. Even though it's such a scary time, there is something beautiful about that. We are all together in this, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that. Oh, and one last thing. Wash your fucking hands.
Wash your hands. 20 seconds.
Jesus. Thank you for listening to another Isolation Cast, Voices from Quarantine. As always, find us on Facebook at Isolation Cast, Voices from Quarantine, or Dole Whip in Dreams. Make sure to check that out for what all of our guests are doing and how you can help artists out in your area or around the world. Find us on Twitter at Dole Whip Pod, find us on Instagram at Dole Whip in Dreams, and even on TikTok at Maddie Lime. Now, go out and find your joy.